Welcome to another Contributor Office Hours. This is the session that we try to cover once a month, in which we do a bit of an overview of what has been happening. If there's any updates, it's the perfect time to check the progress, and it's also a good time if you're someone who's looking to get your hands dirty, if you're looking to get stuck into some issues. This is the perfect place to come, because we can easily point you in the direction of where help could be most needed, and hopefully that's a match for you, and we can find something for you. I've already spoken with some of the key stakeholders when it comes to the open working groups, and if I'm not mistaken, there's not too many updates at the moment to show, at least from the front end aspect. So what I was thinking that I'm going to do is, since we're recording this, and since this might be seen also by others who haven't for example, been in the latest Komiser weekly meetings, those are the meetings that we have every Friday, just to kind of like ramp them up on what open groups exist, what is the progress of the work that's being done now, and what help could be needed. I do apologize if this is slightly redundant for some of the contributors who have been working and who have been joining all of the Komiser weekly events as of late. But I think it's good to just touch base and see exactly what's been working on and what stage we're at. So just to start off with the resource dependency graph, that's one of the open working groups that we have at the moment. Just to brush you up on what it is exactly, I just have it open here. So at the moment we have Avinash, which is spearheading the resource dependency graph. I had a conversation with Avinash earlier on, and he pointed out that there isn't anything new in the front end to show. I know that he's been collaborating with Pranav, if I'm not mistaken. I think his username is OX Gamma, and they've been finding some headway, or at least progressing in a really nice direction, because there was a time there that the resource dependency graph, you can't see, I'm sharing the resource dependency graph there, but you don't see it. Let me just reshare my screen, sorry. There you go, you can see it there now. The resource dependency graph is slightly challenging from a front-end aspect, because there weren't, at least initially, libraries that matched on exactly to the wireframes that were created by the design team. So as you can see here, by heading over to this Explore tab, which will be available on the main dashboard of Komiser, you'll be able to head over to a view of your multi-cloud environment in this form of graphical nodes. The reason for doing this is that it's very different to be able to see a long list of resources that make up your infrastructure, to seeing them in a graph in which you can see exactly what nodes, what resources are connected, and how. The main idea here is that we'll be able to see the dependencies and see what is being used and what isn't being used, potentially opening up conversations around resources that are redundant, resources that could be that you could get rid of. So Avinash and Pranav have been working at this, and if I'm not mistaken, there has been a lot of headway, and I think it would be safe to say that in the coming weeks this working group might come to an end. If I'm mistaken, please let me know, Avinash. But we'll hopefully, by the next contributor office hours, we'll be able to deliver on this feature. So this is from the resource dependency graph side. Moving on to the onboarding wizard. Also, the context around the Onboarding Wizard is that up until now, let me just locate the Onboarding Wizard here. Up until now, if you want to authenticate your cloud environments to Komiser, you need to edit the config.toml file. So the idea is that through this wizard, you'll be able to pass through the screens and choose the type of the type of credentials that you're providing for each resource, and you'll be able to then very easily from a user experience aspect populate the credentials and give Komiser the access that it needs to your multiple cloud providers. The spearhead of this feature so far has been Philip. Philip has been working tightly with Shoutout and with Seyi to deliver on the Onboarding Wizard. Also, just to give a little bit of context, there were some difficulties after the first initial sprint, as we can say, with regard to a few missing endpoints for the backend. After reorganizing the work, Shubham has been taking the lead there, and I think he's been making some really good progress. I don't think Shubham has anything in particular to show for this call. Also, he's not here at the moment, but hopefully, similar to the resource dependency graph, hopefully we're going to be able to deliver this by the next contributor office hours. Once Shubham has the endpoints exposed, then Philip and Say are going to be able to wrap up with the missing front end work there. So this is the context around the Onboarding Wizard. If I'm not mistaken, there's not much help needed at this moment in time, but if you are interested in helping out, just head on over to that channel on Discord. Cool. So moving on to the next working group or the next initiative that was worked on this month. It's around the new documentation. And sorry, I'm just going to reshare my screen because the share screen does not track. I'm just going to reshare here so you can see what I'm trying to show you. Cool. So we transitioned the documentation. This is the official Komiser documentation over to Mintlify. We were using Docusaurus, which is a platform that is maintained by Meta. And this platform gives us a few different functionalities. It's also quite easy to make visually appealing documentation. It's all written in Markdown, making it very easy to collaborate to. We also changed the way the documentation is organized with a getting start section, breaking down the installation of the Komiser CLI itself here, and then once that's installed, you can head over to the quick start. This is where we introduce the concept of the config.toml file. Of course, once the Onboarding Wizard is live, this will become secondary information, since we're going to prioritize the Onboarding Wizard as a way of authenticating. So a user can and always will be able to edit the config.toml file directly if they want to, but the Onboarding Wizard is just always going to be the easiest way to do so. And then after that, we broke down the cloud providers into its own section under configuration, where you can find all the steps to get your different cloud providers authenticated. So in your own time, if you want, please go ahead and check out the documentation. Please let us know if there's any feedback, any improvements that you think could be added. At the moment, this is the initial kind of offering of the version 1, we could call it, of the documentation, because Ali on the design team, she put together some really good wireframes that I tried to copy and implement right here, but some of the styling needs to be adjusted, and I've converted those missing aspects or those styling issues that need to be addressed into these 8 tickets. So these tickets are in the Komiser repo. You'll probably notice now that they're not in the actual docs repo. The idea now is that the docs live inside the Komiser repository under the docs file. The idea here is that we want to make it as easy as possible. If there's any commit, any new version of Komiser that's shipped, it should be as easy as editing the file in the docs file in the Komiser repo to have up-to-date docs. Hopefully removing this friction will make sure that our documentation is always as current and as up-to-date as possible. So if there's no questions here, just so you know, you can always grab those issues. It'll be really cool if someone can help us out with those 8 issues there. Okay, moving on. We also have the Komiser architecture revamp. So the architecture revamp is a topic that was brought up by Avinash, and Avinash has also taken the lead into doing some initial research into how the Komiser documentation can be rethought. We could go into a little bit more detail, but I'm going to leave it until at least the next Komiser Weekly, where hopefully Avinash will be able to shed some light into some of his findings. But the main idea is that we want to make Komiser more easily scalable, more easily make it easier for contributors to add value without needing to have one file for each resource, and also one of the key things, we want to make it easy for cost to be calculated and not to do it in such an iterative process. I see, Avinash, that you would like to speak. I can pass it over to you if you have some updates to give us on this. Sorry. Oh, I think you're rejoining. Let me just give you some. I've just invited you to speak there. Let me know if you can. There we go.
Hey everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Firstly, sorry. I'm joining from my mobile phone, and because I just reached home. And about the architecture, as Jay said, I'm still working on it. And sorry, there is no update in that initiative. But I came here, and I'll drop off very soon because I need some time to rest. But I'll say this. I was in a call with Shivam today, and he asked me a question which I felt should be discussed among us, and that is why I'm bringing this up right now. And maybe Mohammed can join, and we can have a discussion on this. So currently, I think one of the barriers that contributors are facing is about having a cloud account. So in order to use Komiser, you are supposed to have a cloud account, and because the backend is running that way. And so the concern raised by Shivam was he wanted to do some changes in the front end, but he cannot do the changes because it is attached to the backend, and he doesn't have a account. So I thought of like, can we create a dummy kind of a thing, which is like an API, something like a REST APIs, which can be called from locally, and it gives dummy data that to the front end, having maybe a mode like a dev mode where the front end gets dummy data, so things will be working correctly. It's just that you won't have data, the actual data, but something similar to it. so that the front end task can be done quickly, and the barrier of having an account won't be a case.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks a million for bringing that up. I understand the issue there. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, and Mohammed, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have something similar for testing the the front end for tail warden. We do have some dummy data that we act as if it's data coming from an AWS account. Now, I don't know if that's a real account that's been created that we can create a kind of like a similar one to for Komiser contributors, but yeah, let us know, Mohammed.
Hey Jake, hey everyone, hey Avinash. Yeah, it's a great question. So there is two things. First is since Komiser stores the data on database, so currently Komiser stores data on either on Postgres or SQLite, so we can always like insert the data on the database and also export that as a SQL file so that any contributor can have that data populated on the database and they will have already data that they can see on the front end without having the need to have access to a cloud provider or create things on cloud providers. So we can think about having those SQL files part of the contribution guidelines, and anyone can just download that SQL and like run it on their Postgres or SQLite. So that could solve the issue. Another way is since we have created an AWS account for the maintainers, we can always also create read-only access for the contributors open requests, so we can always give them access and even on that AWS account we can have a bunch of EC2 instances and RDS servers running there so that anyone can have real data. So those are two options. I think the easiest one which I usually use locally while working on Komiser because it's faster is having an export of the database, and that's the export I always load to my Postgres database every time I'm working on Komiser. So maybe that's something we can do is like have a bunch of like cloud resources stored on Postgres and do the export and share that export with anyone who want to work on Komiser. I think that will simplify the collaboration. And the other option is anyone who would like to contribute to Komiser and doesn't have an AWS account or other cloud provider, and it's a must for them to test things because sometimes mocking the data might not work all the time. We can always give them access to the AWS account so that they can contribute to the project. What do you think of those options?
For the one you talked of, the export one, right? In that, I think still they would require an account because the backend will be talking to the will doing the fetching requests and stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh, like the backend will still do the fetching, but if you have like a config.tumblr with cloud accounts, if it's not the case, the backend will always return the data that is on the database. So it's not a must that you configure a cloud account on Komiser. So it's more if you want to have new resources, but if Komiser currently doesn't find any accounts connected through the configuration file, it will like return what is on the database. So you will still have data anyway.
Okay, so okay, then I think there is something which Shivam was doing wrong. I'll probably take a demo of why he was getting an error, because he said that he's getting an error and he was not passing the config. So I thought like it was because of this, but I'll debug. I'll have another call with him and debug what problem he's facing. And regarding this, I think we can start up like we can have a dummy export thing that uh, Mohammed said in our contribution guide as well. And in case some anybody requires a backend support or is working on backend support, we can give the cred for that particular time frame of features till while he's working.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's still like a really great question and point. Like I think we can still like do the export of database because that's how we usually work with the front end developers. Since Komiser today is quite a monolithic like platform, I would say you still need like to launch the backend in a way or another to have the dashboard. So just to simplify the experience for front end developers, having like the export of data, and they can just like load that export to the database will simplify a lot of their work. And yeah, like if anyone wants to work on the project but this do not have an access to an AWS account or GCP or whatever, just send a request to Jake and we can generate the credentials and give you access to the platform.
Perfect. Thanks a million. Yeah, and I'm guessing that we could even have different use cases stored in those different Postgres DBs or in the SQLite files. We could have just like a single AWS account file, maybe another one with different cloud providers to simulate different use cases to have different information. Cool, perfect. Thanks a million for that, Avinash, and thanks a million for filling us in there on the options, Mohammed. I really appreciate it. Just quickly moving on, I just wanted to do two quick shout outs before wrapping up. Let me just see if I can find the screen that I want to share. First of all, I just wanted to give a shout out to Kunal Verma, the official contributor of the month for August. Apart from all of the great work that he does inside of the community, he helps out a lot, great engagement. But mainly, we did it because of the great series, the 9-episode series that he did with the Cloud Native Lab on the Cube Simplified Twitch channel. I had a conversation with him yesterday that you can watch here on YouTube if you would like. And through just one thing, if you want to actually watch back to the actual streams that he did on Twitch, he told me yesterday that that Twitch has removed the streams due to the normal retention period that they have on Twitch. But this week Kunal is going to re-record the whole process of implementing Komiser and just having it all kind of summarized in one video, and that will be kind of like the summary of all of the work that was done during those 9 episodes. So yeah, just wanted to quickly give a shout out to Kunal for that. And another shout out too is for another community member, Manogna. When I mentioned in an earlier video this month, it was the what's new for Komiser in August, I mentioned that Manogna had written a single blog post on cloud cost monitoring with Komiser. And it turns out that she's been busy. She's written 4 more, and yeah, so you can head on over to her profile on Hashnode. I'll add these blog posts to the description of the video once I upload this later on to YouTube. But I also wanted to shout out Manogna's work with kind of battling with Komiser, especially with the Terraform deployment of it, and how she got through it and how she explained it through the blog posts. It was very, very cool. So that is pretty much everything that I had. If there's any things that you would like to talk about, if there's anybody that needs work, please let me know. I think everyone here, at least whoever's online, is good to go. But yeah, Eric, I see you're writing, but if unless there's anything else, I think we can leave it here. Perfect. So you're good for now, but next week we'll be sure to help you out to find a new task. Cool. Everybody, thanks a million for joining live. It's been a pleasure as always. I'll upload this a little bit later on today. Big hug. I'll see you on Discord and catch you next time. Bye, everyone.